Okay, so on this slide here, we're going to talk about the T-shirt, A Rebel Without a Cause. This is from an article from the BBC.com by Jobin Burkhardt, written a couple of years ago. And I was absolutely amazed on my trips over to Asia to see young people wearing American logo T-shirts. It had become a popular fad in the United States years ago, but even today, we see people, young people all around the world, wearing American logo T-shirts. Some countries are starting to use their own national symbols on T-shirts as well. And, it could be anything from the college you're attending, your favorite rock band, a political statement, a smiley face, um, or possibly even an actor or a concert you might have attended, or you name it. It's probably on a T-shirt. And actually, it's not just for young people anymore. In America, you see older people wearing T-shirts, maybe if they're into golf or sailing or whatever their sport is, you would see a T-shirt. Brand names of famous manufacturers of clothing have come out with their own special line of T-shirts. So we're going to talk a little bit through this article about its history and how it became popular and why it's still popular today. So again, from the BBC.com, the T-shirt, A Rebel Without a Cause by Jobin Burkhardt. Okay, so the article starts off, it says, from Marlon Brando to James Dean to cancel Brexit, the T-shirt has been a rebel without a cause. Jobin Burkhardt looks into a history of slogans and subversion. While a virile, brooding Marlon Brando shouted Stella in the 1951 film adaptation of A Streetcar Named Desire, he wasn't just beckoning his lover, but he was heralding at the top of his lungs the birth of a fashion icon. While the T-shirt has indeed come a long way from its rise to popularity in the 1950s, it has also, in more ways than one, remained the same. Nearly 70 years after Brando sported one as Stanley Kowalski, and over a century of its advent, what is now a universal fashion staple is the focus of cult culture subversion. A new major exhibit at London's Fashion and Textile Museum takes a comprehensive look at the evolution of the T-shirt from its early days to the present. Through a plethora of garments, photographs, and other archival material sourced predominantly from private collections. The T-shirt is really basic way of telling the world who and what we are, says Dennis Northrup. While the garment's history is a highlight of the exhibition, it isn't the focus. Rather, curator Dennis Northrup and team have decided to showcase, as per the show's title, the various subcultures that have surrounded the T-shirt as well as its power as a social political medium. Quote, "It feels quite relevant. It was a matter of the personal as politicized," says Northrup, in reference to the exhibition's premise. The t-shirt is really a basic way of telling the world who and what you are. Although t-shirt-like garments such as the tunic date back to ancient times, it was only recently, relatively speaking, that the t-shirt, as it is now known, first appeared. Its origins lie in the union suit, a sort of button-down onesie worn by both men and women, particularly male workers, towards the end of the 19th century in the United States. Effective at keeping one toasty in colder temperatures, it wasn't exactly suited towards heat or warm weather. Frustrated with its design, workers cut them in half, tucking the top bit into the bottom. Marlon Brando popularized the t-shirt when he wore it in the 1951 film A Streetcar Named Desire. Shortly afterwards, the Cooper Underwear Company began marketing the tops without buttons as bachelor undershirts, as there was no need to resew buttons back into place. And in 1913, they became part of the uniform of the U.S. Navy, where they were known as lightweight, short-sleeve white cotton undervests. Until the 1920s, the t-shirt was called by every name but its own. Things changed, however, with the publication of F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1920 novel, This Side of Paradise, which marked the first ever appearance of the name. In the same year, it also happened to find its way into Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So early in September, Amory, the author, wrote of his protagonist, provided with 6 suits, summer underwear, 6 suits, winter underwear, 1 sweater or t-shirt, 1 jersey, 1 overcoat, winter, etc., out for New England, the land of schools. Although the tees worn by Amory could, in the 1930s, be found in department stores throughout the states, as well as seen all around American high schools in the 40s. It wasn't until heartthrobs like Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire and James Dean in 1955 Rebel Without a Cause rocked them on the silver screen that the t-shirt truly became the t-shirt, no matter how plain and simple it was. And it was also in the movie that we talked about called Blackboard Jungle, where Sidney Poitier, a young Sidney Poitier, a student, a rebellious student, it's kind of a tough class, is wearing a plain white t-shirt. Prior to this, the t-shirt was by and large an undergarment meant to be worn beneath one's proper clothes. It was seldom regarded as an article in its own right. It's just a white t-shirt, but it already has that kind of disruptive potential, Northrup says, of the kind worn by Brando and Dean. It was rebellious because t-shirts were actually undergarments. It was a tough political statement, more than they could ever have imagined. Brando and Dean nailed the style and spirit of what had been an unassuming piece of underwear to a T. The plain white t-shirt may have caused a stir in America in the 50s, but it had miles to go in realizing its full potential. As Northrop terms it, disruption. By the time A Streetcar Named Desire screened in cinemas, graphic tees were already a thing. T-shirts with the name Oz, O-Z, emblazoned on them appeared in 1939's The Wizard of Oz, and perhaps inspired by the wonderful Wizard's Minions in Emerald City. Republican candidate Thomas E. Dewey used the first ever slogan t-shirt in 1948, saying, "Do it with Dewey," presidential campaign. While Dewey lost to Truman, he still made history, albeit in a very different context. Graphic T-shirts are still popular 70 years on, as with its design by experimental Jet Set and 2K gingham. Shortly afterwards, a company by the name of Tropex Togs obtained the exclusive right to print official Disney t-shirts after Disneyland opened in the mid-50s, realizing the immense profits to be made from graphic tees. By the early 60s in America, improvements and innovations in printing technology, such as the proliferation of the silkscreen method popularized by Andy Warhol, as well as an overall surge in popularity, had firmly entrenched the graphic tee in not only the fashion world, but also popular culture as a whole. Across the pond, the story was somewhat different. In the early and mid-60s, the t-shirt in all its iterations had yet to become popular amongst the masses in Britain. They certainly couldn't be seen in high schools across the island, as was the case in America in 1940s, and still had a way to go in becoming socially acceptable. Fashion designers like Barbara Hulanik, however, were bent on breaking the status quo and marketing the t-shirt to fashion-conscious youth. They were very new, she says, also noting that they were considered too casual to be worn in certain places, such as offices. That didn't stop Hulanek from pursuing her ideals, though. We started selling them in 1964, just before we opened the first shop, she says of her massively popular Biba, which first began selling clothes via mail order catalogs. Less than 10 years later, with the opening of Big Biba department store on Oxford Street, the story would be entirely different. By then, the t-shirt had become a fixture in British fashion, and the cult brand's graphic tees featured its signature Art Nouveau typography were essential elements of its offering. The t-shirt was sort of our lifeline, she candidly remarks. Although the story begins more or less in the early 50s, it was the 70s that the t-shirt truly emerged as something revolutionary. Its popularity of brand logos, such as John Pache's Tongue and Lips for the Rolling Stones, as well as concert tees, saw fans expressing their musical inclinations and affiliations across their chest. The t-shirt has also become a way to protest against such issues as the Vietnam War, and on a lesser scale, the 1971 obscenity trial surrounding London's Oz magazine. So effective was the graphic t-shirt as a form of expression that in 1973, the New York Times dubbed it, quote, the medium for the message. Similarly, Northrop looks at it as a blank canvas that associates you with a specific cultural movement or tribe. Catherine Hammett wore a t-shirt with an anti-nuclear message when she met Margaret Thatcher in 1984, calling it, quote, one of the original selfie photo ops. None of this was lost on Vivienne Westwood and her then partner in crime, Malcolm McLaren, whose t-shirts, both in terms of graphics and tailoring, effectively encapsulated the ethos of the punk movement taking place in Britain in the late 1970s. Nor did veteran designer Catherine Hammett fail to appreciate the subversion potential of three stitched together pieces of cotton. It seemed as if democracy was slipping through our fingers, she says, regarding the late 1970s, when she first began producing her signature slogan t-shirts. The slogan t-shirt was something that gives you a voice, something to believe in, that you could wear on your chest that could be read from 200 yards away. It is more than anything else the subversion potential of the t-shirt and its power as a medium for expression that the exhibition at the London Fashion and Textile Museum examines. While the Elton John heat transfers and pug-faced children's tees are certainly part of the story, it's perhaps the designs by Hulanek, Westwood, and Hammett, amongst other contemporary ones, that highlight the garment's revolutionary aspect. Hammett's first slogan was "Choose Life," the central tenet of Buddhism. Of particular note is Hammett's icon "Choose Life" t-shirt, immortalized in Wham's "Wake Me Up Before You Go" promo, and the Transpotting series, and the Frankie Says Relaxed Hammett copy, Westwood and McLaren's controversial t-shirts, Jimmy Reed's punk slogan tees, including Accidental Anarchist and A Brick Will Do the Trick, and a Keith Haring AIDS awareness design from the early 90s. Amongst the more recent times, the Guerrilla Girls, Advantages of Being a Woman Artist tee, designs from Westwood's Climate Change Theme 2013 collection, and Dior's head-turning We Should All Be Feminists outfit from 2017 demand attention, especially in light of current movements and trends. It completely caught the mood of the moment, says Northrop of the Dior t-shirt, whose sentiments echoed those of Hammett. I love what they're doing. Do it more, more, more. Throughout her career, Westwood has been an activist as well as a designer. Naturally, in such a comprehensive exhibit, one is focused to consider the longevity of the t-shirt and its enduring appeal. What makes the t-shirt so special, and why has it been around for so long? Aside from its disruptive capability, Northrop makes a note of its simplicity. Quote, it's simple, and in its basic form, it's not gendered, he remarks. In its most pure form, it is the most democratic garment. Similarly, Hulanek points to the t-shirt's wearability and casualness, as well as what she calls an emotional connection, particularly where graphic tees are concerned. And when asked how she would have communicated her ideas had the t shirt not existed, the otherwise outspoken Hammett finds herself at a loss for words. I don't know. I can't think of anything better, really. I don't know what else I would have done. She continues to speak about political causes through t shirts today, launching a cancel Brexit design in September 2017. Dubbing themselves the conscience of the art world in 1985, the Guerrilla Girls began a poster campaign that has found its way onto t shirts. But where, one may rightly ask, are we heading? Although brands like Cute Circuit are pushing the boundaries with digital interfaces, the t shirt more or less has remained true to its original form for over a century. It is also interesting to note with the availability of three-dimensional and digital printing, as well as the retro appeal of silkscreen, the DIY attitude of the punk era is in vogue once again. While one can't say for sure what the future holds in store for the t-shirt, one thing perhaps is certain. It's here to stay. I don't think it'll ever go, says Northrop. It's ubiquitous. Hulanak lets out an "oh no" when asked if t-shirts will ever become a thing of the past. Something Hammett can't envision either. I think they'll live on forever, opines the latter. I don't think you can take them away. They're unbeatable. Okay, so that's just a quick introduction to t-shirts and its power. Starting off as an undergarment, making its way to a fashion to political statement.